Hello my friends, welcome back. My name is Jack.
And I am the snack that smiles back, yeah.
No more Emily again today. I'm sorry, please. But more controversial Reddit stories for you to indulge in. Let's go. A date with a stranger saved me. A few years ago, 2 to 3 I think, I was a student in London. I wasn't at my happiest. I was a bit chubby and picked a lot of wrong guys to try and date. I'm male, and the gay community in which I was active had a tendency towards hot bodies. It was a time when I felt quite alone and unlovable romantically. While I had a lot of friends, my love life was basically inexistent. I was very sad because of this and started struggling with anxiety. One particularly gloomy morning, I saw a tourist on Grindr close to where I lived, Bloomsbury. We texted and decided to have a breakfast date. That date is still one of the most monumental I've had. We met in Soho and ate at the Breakfast Club, where we shared quite lovely conversation. For the first time in ages, he paid. I've never struggled financially, but always found it nice when someone offers to pay for something. We then took a walk around London and I showed him around. I remember I got him some chocolate-covered strawberries because they were my favorites at the time. When we kissed, it felt absolutely magical. When the date ended, I was feeling better than I had felt in ages. I felt worthy of kindness and love. The man lifted me up and gave me enough confidence to actually go turn my life around. Since then, I've focused intensely on self-development, and I'm now at a great level, both physically and emotionally. But when the date ended, he told me he was leaving the very next day, and there was no point sharing numbers because it would just cause more heartache. I understood and was honestly impressed by his maturity. No games played, but I sometimes think of him. And if not to get in touch, I'd at least like to thank him. I tried looking online, but no good leads, so I'm getting it off my chest here. All I know about him is that he's from New York City, is an interior designer, and his name begins with K. Not sure I can share the whole name, but I know it and can confirm if asked. He's quite tall, around over 6 foot, and has very beautiful hands. I think he has blue eyes though, I'm not 100% sure. So, K, if you're reading this, thank you. I don't know if you know, but my time with you helped me tremendously. If I ever do see you again, breakfast's on me. Okay, you absolute cock tease! How dare you make a date be more than just trying to get a bit of booty, but actually making good, meaningful connections with those around you? I feel that's where we need to take dates these days, though. Hookup culture's kind of ruined the idea of dates. It's encouraged us to think or assume or pursue them purely to try and get laid, which in turn is so disrespectful to the other person because, you're essentially admitting you're only using them for your own personal benefit. And look, I did that for a while myself. I get it, hookup culture. If all you want is a bit of a quick screw, you do that, sure. But you can't deny the extreme possibility that if they didn't have genitalia, you wouldn't be speaking to them right now. I like this top comment about this. Just amazing how much we can help our fellow beings with something as simple as letting them know they are lovable. Now, I don't say this in a way of bragging, but I do find myself to be like this sometimes. I bounce between the spectrum. Sometimes I just want to give compliments for the sake of just letting that person know that they are great as they are, even if I don't objectively think they're the best they can be of themselves. On the other end, I'm sometimes not afraid to be like, yeah, you suck at this, but, just keep trying and do better. What's the lesson to take from this story? Just because a moment with someone can be fleeting doesn't mean you shouldn't give them your absolute best. Because while the moment may go, the memory and the experience that person had with you will last forever. Here's a story reflecting on the other end of the spectrum where you end up being a very terrible experience. She finally dumped my abusive butt and I've had no idea what to do with myself. I've known for a while. I've tried to stop it unsuccessfully. There is such a thing. I grew up in a sick and unhealthy environment, and that has shaped the way I react to everything. The shame is overwhelming. I want to puke in a bucket and bathe in it. And I know it sucked for her because I've been her in the past, but I've changed for the worst. I've become an amoeba with no sense of identity who just prays for a living. There are so many resources available to those abused, but what do I do with myself? I don't want to micromanage everything I do and second guess my good intentions. I swear by my true, untainted feelings before they left my mouth in such a horrible manner, but I did love and I did care. I want to become someone else. I want it to feel natural. I want it to really be good. Where do I go now? Is there a forward? I like this story. It highlights the thing that we are missing as a society. Before we make any judgments or discuss it a bit more though, OP does reply a bit, so. Top comment, I think it's a really huge step in the right direction that you can recognize that your behavior was wrong. Do you have the means to seek therapy? Perhaps you could learn some strategies to untangle your traumas and reframe the way you handle tough situations. OP responds, yes, I've been in therapy for 10 years, next year. I suppose I don't know how to get the best out of therapy. Sometimes I feel like there's nothing to say and we could skip a session. And even if I knew exactly what to say, the shame is so excessively massive. I'm in limbo and don't want to go to hell. By this point, people do recommend that, look, you clearly struggled to share your deepest thoughts with your therapist. Maybe you should switch therapists. Clearly there's not a strong enough rapport if you genuinely don't feel comfortable sharing, the darkest part of yourself. Unfortunately, based on reading more of this great wall of dialogue, it is a case where they are genuinely just struggling to share. Oh, and here's a great suggestion. If you yourself know anyone who is rather abusive in their tendencies or are struggling with those behaviors that they know are toxic and problematic, they don't know how else to deal with them. Sometimes people actually heal best by not talking so much about their traumas. If you're into reading, I would highly recommend the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He talks about how trauma can be stored in the body and describes interesting strategies for overcoming the challenges of opening up to people. Just gonna highlight that one and save it for later. Yeah, self-development. Oh yeah, self-develop me harder, daddy. Yeah, I do make that an open question. Are there any avenues someone who is abusive can take in regards to fixing themselves? I mean, yes, we can argue they've got therapy for that, but I mean, so do victims of abuse. It's hard though, because these people are the instigators of the violence. Why do they need a safe space? Maybe we could make safe spaces for them to express this instigation of violence. It makes me think of, I'm really going into story mode here. If you're not familiar of Hamish and Andy, they're a comedy radio group here in Australia. They used to do these series where they go on world tours to places, little road trips. They did one about England, and there was this small town where they pretty much had two factions, two gangs that were causing a lot of strife and violence and murder for years. So how do you solve all this pent-up violence and instigation of murder upon each other? They came together through boxing, literally through violence. Essentially, they solved their tendency to hurt each other by responsibly hurting each other. Now, could you apply this to every aspect of someone who's a domestic abuser? But I do wonder if maybe as a society, we pursue less about the idea that violence is bad, but rather violence is controllable. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone is abusive and has been abusive in the past, absolute scum. I see them like pedophiles. If you act on it, you're dirt. But if you're someone who's aware of it and is like, hey, I need help, good on you, go get that help. I just feel like there could be more we could do other than just go talk to a stranger for $20 a minute. Next one's a quick question to ask. People are rewarded for having kids and is bullshit. Why aren't people praised or supported for not replicating? As someone who's personally child-free but not an a-hole about it, you already know where I stand about this thing, so we'll go straight to the comments that greatly confirm this. We, the non-breeders, are also rewarded for not having kids, because we don't have to deal with kids. Like, yeah. Yes, have 2 kids, can confirm. I love my kids, but I would give my left nut to have a week without the responsibility with my wife. Okay, but giving your nut is just gonna end you up with having more kids. I mean, he got a point though. Now, this one's heavily contested with a lot of comments compared to these other stories and questions, so. But of course, there are the more dire thoughts to consider, such as, yeah, we should stop as global citizens. It's terrible. Some are still overbreeding and think it's something to be proud about. In this dying world running out of time and resources, the worst part is that the masses of racists just adding more and more into their team. It's only going to get worse. Okay, dude, but just for that last sentence, I'm assuming is referring to white people specifically. White Christians, breeding, yuck. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's other countries and other cultures out there that definitely have more than just 1 or 2 kids. But otherwise, the resources thing, look, kids do produce the carbon and environmental impact by literally existing. It's one of those things where it can be rather ironic if you're someone who cares about environmental impact yet actively pursues having multiple kids. That said, I think it's a double-edged sword sort of argument. Because what if that kid is someone who helps make a big difference for this world in terms of the environmental impact? Then you have the other side of the argument. Who is going to help you out in your old age if you are childless? Will you then rely on government support? Is that not the same thing? I don't shame people for not having children. It doesn't bother me. But in my experience, for people that claim they're happy to not have any children, they sure complain a lot. So there you have it. Use children for labor in your older years. Back to the original question. I feel it's not so much an idea of who's praised and supported more, but who's publicly and openly praised and supported more. And to be fair, for some people, it's a rather trivial and time-consuming ordeal to actually have kids and be able to raise them properly with your time and energy and, financial stability. Meanwhile, to not have kids is to simply just wear a condom or get a snip. I did a short film where I had to be a pregnant person. Weird story, I know. I took my time to just research the experience one goes through when childbirth and pregnancy and such. People, it's not a walk in the park. It is messy and violently painful. I was wearing this belly for only 5 hours of that day, and my back was in so much pain. I can't remember how much it weighed. I think it was 8 kilos, 5 kilos, 10 kilos, something like that. Either way, it was a nightmare. My back hurt. If you get pregnant and have a child, genuinely, well done to you. You survived more than I would have dealt with. The sex story is a great example of just scooping away the trash from your life. My ex's life is falling apart, and I'm happy about it. I know, it sounds a little messed up. We dated from 15 until we were about 19, where we were on and off again for another year before it ended finally. While we were together, she cheated on me multiple times with multiple people. She abused me physically, mentally, and emotionally. She had given all of my money to her and her dad in exchange for a place to live when I got kicked out at 17. She would gaslight me every chance she could, so much that even today, 3 years after we split, I still find myself thinking of those things. She made me stop hanging out with all of my friends, and after the relationship, I wasn't able to repair most of those relationships. When we split up, she told everyone I was the abuser, and even went as far as stalking me and my new girlfriend, which, as far as I know, she still does this from time to time. Her brother would steal all of my belongings and sell it for drugs. Her father would take all my money, and her friends all encouraged her to lie to me and cheat. It was a really toxic relationship. Every time I would try to end, she would play the classic, "If you leave, I'll kill myself" card, guilting me into staying with her. After we broke up, she took my TV and my dog, which ended up getting hit by a car because she didn't watch her. Soon after we broke up, she got into legal trouble for drinking and driving, assault, and various other things. Her father died abruptly one day. Turns out he had health issues he never spoke to anybody about. So when he passed away, she lost all they had because of the massive debt he accumulated. She had been cheating on me for the last year with someone she ended up dating after we split, and I guess he ran her over with his car and messed up her throat. Then her friend and her boyfriend beat her with a gun and she almost died. Her family all turned their backs on her and she's all alone. She never leaves me alone, and I don't talk to her besides the occasional hello. Since we live in a small as heck town, it's kind of hard to avoid people completely. When she tried to get a job at the place I've been at for over a year, I ruined her chances by telling HR how problematic she actually is, and that if they hired her for housekeeping, I would quit. One of the 2 people in the IT department. It's sad what she's gone through, but she deserves it, and it kind of makes me happy that she's having such a hard time. My life has done nothing but get better. Got a great job, amazing partner in my life, my own home and 2 cars, eliminated my student loan debt that accumulated because of how she left me with all the bills of our last place together. I even fixed my relationship with my parents that was ruined because I was with her for so long. Long story short, someone ruined my life and theirs is now in shambles, and it makes me feel relieved. I gotta say, I was totally on your side with the issue of the dog. Up to there, I was like, yeah, she deserves this. But, buddy, can we not agree that being beaten to the end of your life with a gun? I'm not exactly sure that's something someone deserves. Maybe if she's been struggling to find any genuine relationships with people because she's cheated on you so much, yeah, I'd get that. But you're comparing your emotional pain to her literal, physical, and emotional, and financial pain. Gotta say, her stating to all her friends that you were the abuser, look, considering this is how you're reacting to her genuine suffering, I'm kinda concerned for you, man. Comments obviously all defend him. You didn't ruin her chances. She was trying to stalk you at work and you told the truth about her toxic behavior. Enjoy the schadenfreude. I'm glad you were in a much better place. Definitely have every right to make a stand against, a toxic ex trying to work at the same department and place as you. I don't know, am I being too hopeful here? I genuinely feel like this guy is being an absolute a-hole towards her. Moving on to something that I also have been rather curious about. I hate that so many people use mental health as an excuse to be an a-hole. Now, I love that more and more people are talking about mental health and self-care. It's important, and we all need it. But now, too many people think it means, think only about yourself. I see so many posts encouraging terrible things like ghosting, asking for constant reassurance and attention, asking people to go out of their way to help you feel better. That's not how things work. You can get away from bad relationships. You can ask for reassurance sometimes. You can ask for help, but you should never hurt or emotionally exhaust other people for your mental health. Being mentally ill isn't an excuse for treating people poorly. Having bad days happen, breaking down or burning out happens, but you should apologize if you said or did something hurtful to someone afterwards. If someone is upset at something you said or did, you can't expect them to forgive you just because you are mentally ill until you apologized. And no, if someone phrases something wrong or messes up or made a mistake once, it doesn't mean that they are a narcissist, abusive, or a living red flag. Not everyone is manipulating and gaslighting you. It's okay to be mentally ill, and it's okay to ask for help and support. But it's not okay to damage other people's mental health so you can feel better. I highlight this story because it does bring up something I've always pondered lately. I can't be bothered finding the science behind it, so feel free to not trust my word unless you do your own searching too. But stress, for example, is actually a healthy thing for the body and the brain. Of course, just like anything, too much of something can end up being bad for you. And the problem I feel like has been arising in society lately is that what is considered stressful can usually just be requiring you to put in a bit of effort. Like, despite the pitfalls we face in modern society, we are living in a lot of comfort. And so you go to work, for example, and yeah, it's a stressful environment, but is it stressful to a point where it's unhealthy for you? Or is it just because you're so used to your more comfortable environments at home or other areas of your life that you've made yourself believe that this stress level you experience at work is too much to handle? I mean, can we not get addicted to comfort the same way people get addicted to other things that they use as an escape? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is an absolute thing. This is me just kind of openly asking the question. I do agree with the top sentence here. It's great that we talk about mental health and self-care as a more normal thing. We all go through it to a degree. And obviously on that point too, not everyone has the same levels of tolerance for stress and anxiety and, when they feel depressed. But I also personally know how this pursuit in feeling like I belong to people because I'm just as mentally problematic as them affected my own understanding of my own bouts of depression. I remember when I was more consistent with experiencing depression. You get depressed, but then you notice what other people are depressed about and what they've been through. How do you deserve to be depressed compared to them? But instead of me thinking, you know what, my life's actually pretty well and I'm very humbled and thankful for that. I have these problems going on, but it's nice to know that realistically, I've got nothing to worry about. Instead, I clung to the idea that I need to be depressed, so...
gee, I'm so pathetic that I'm getting depressed over things there's nothing to be depressed about. I've got nothing to worry about. I'm such an idiot.
Like we shame ourselves for not having bad enough experiences to be upset about. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Do you have anyone you know that's uses mental health as an excuse to be an a-hole? Now let's move on to the topic of cheating. I don't want to date anybody because of cheating. I cannot for the life of me fathom one's anger when being cheated on. If I were to put as much effort and energy into relationships as I have previously, and she were to give another guy herself, I would legitimately be so mad I wouldn't know what to do with myself. This, paired with how many posts I see here about cheating, makes me wonder if maybe relationships aren't for me, and I'm just better off keeping my Johnny happy with hookups. Welcome to an example of confirmation bias. You're on subreddits, they're all about people complaining about their relationships or dating or just, cheating in general. Of course you're gonna see so many people talking about cheating. It's like buying a product based on how many bad reviews they have. 90% of the time, the only reason people are giving a review is if it's a bad product and they want to vent their frustration. This comment, fun fact about cheating. 2% of current fathers are raising children they believe and are told are their biological children, but aren't. OP says, awesome, thank you for confirming my beliefs. Sir, that is 2% versus 98%. Those are extremely good odds. I do not doubt this is someone who is very red-pilled into the incel-like community. Come on, man. This is like saying all men should die because some of us are abusers. Get over yourself, dude. But look, I get it. It's an understandable fear. You're worried you put all this time and energy into something with someone and they end up just stabbing you in the back. Though I have to say, if your only reason for doing hookups is purely because you're afraid of relationships, then you're not going to be happy with hookups. You're going to be happy with a relationship. Now, I'm someone who's had plenty of experience in the past of past relationships sort of leaving me for an upgrade or genuinely just trying to hook up with someone behind my back. What helps me? Don't see relationships as some end game. See them as your current journey, your current chapter. In some relationships, they grow into a new chapter together. Be that marriage, be that buying a house and moving in together. You know, those basic stages. Divorce and breaking up, yeah, that can be the start of a new chapter. I think the problem is when we make the relationship our main aspect of our lives. Like realistically, you are the main aspect of your life. You're the main thing. You are your main character. Now that doesn't mean you just put your partner off to the side in terms of life, but you need to remember that just because that person will no longer be in your life at some point, possibly, it's not the end of yours. Learn to give to people, especially your partner, just out of the joy of giving. Don't pursue it in this aspect of, I gave you this, and if you ever do something against me, because then you're not giving out of the joy of giving, you're giving under the sense of a transaction. Moving over to a darker story. Furious. I work in a building that serves intellectually disabled and emotionally disturbed kids from the ages of 6 through to 21. Because of said problems, many are physically, mentally, or emotionally incapable of wearing a mask. Some are immunity compromised. Some have comorbidities. A few of my coworkers have chosen not to get vaccinated for insert reason. One of them showed up for work sick for 2 days. Of course, it turns out to be COVID. One of her charges, a severely autistic child with 2 severely autistic siblings at home, gets COVID. Correlation or causation? I don't know. But if it quacks like a duck, one of the siblings dies last week. The other is on a ventilator. The mother is understandably devastated. Happy mother-flipping holidays, ma'am. All because freedom. I used to really like this coworker. Now I just want them to suffer. Don't think there's anything really to discuss in this story. Just please get vaccinated. I get you're afraid of trusting something that's technically been in study and been in development for the last 30 years, or you just hate the idea of being forced to have something injected inside you. But in reality, you're getting something forcefully injected inside you regardless. Either a vaccine that's designed to protect you, or COVID through someone carelessly spreading it to you. Only difference is you can see the vaccine go inside you. You know when it's happened to you. COVID's gonna come when you don't even realize. And I would much rather have a bit of a sore arm, maybe a bit of a little fever for a few days, than having to be in a hospital on a ventilator and possibly die. Moving on to a nicer story. My boyfriend of 2 years immediately stopped all intimate contact when I said our safe word, and I have never felt more in love with him in my life. This happened a while ago. We were using handcuffs and the cuffs were too tight. Usually, I can take the pain, but I didn't want bruises as we had an event to go to the next day, and in general, I don't enjoy the pain of cuffs that are too tight. He knows this, but sometimes he ends up tightening them a click or two over my limit. We don't count the clicks, but maybe we should. Anyways, I was scared to say anything because I didn't want to upset him, but at some point, I decided I was just going to yell out the safe word. Immediately, he shot up, put his hands up and said something along the lines of, "My hands are up, I'm no longer touching you," which basically means he was making sure I knew that it was over. I told him what was wrong, and he took the cuffs off and apologized. I'm not really sure if this is a true off-my-chest situation, but I felt so loved and cared for. I know it's sad, but I almost couldn't believe his response. I say this because my ex used to coerce me into this stuff and guilt me if I wasn't in the mood. Once, I told my ex that I wanted to stop doing this stuff with him as a relationship reset because things weren't going well, and he agreed. Yet, soon after, when I didn't want to give him head, he called me a stupid profanity and called my little plan stupid. He proceeded to uninvite me from a date he had planned for us and called his best friend to take my place instead. This was just one of the ways he would manipulate me into doing these acts with him. But now, I'm in a relationship with someone who loves and respects me just as much as I do him, and I feel safe. Not gonna lie, I genuinely thought he just stopped all intimate contact for 2 years after saying the safe word, but it's nice to know this has a more wholesome ending than realized. Again, nothing to really say here, but good. Consent is sexy, lads. Huzzah, hello, well done to you. You've made it to the end of this video. This is where I ask you to subscribe and all the yada yada yada, so do that. Anyways, have a good one. My name's been Jack. You've been a lovely person to speak to today. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I feel extra shiny today, so I'm just gonna grab my thingies. By the way, boys and younger girls not as aware of this kind of stuff, if you got a bit of the shiny face, want to, get rid of that flashy reflection, this ain't a sponsorship, but Revlon Photo Ready Prime and Anti-Shine. I've got number 10, Clear Transparent. There you go, right there. Thanks to Emily for sending this to me, because I sure as hell wouldn't have known what the hell I was meant to get. It's amazing though, seriously. You just do a little dab, get a mirror, cheap mirror. Cheap mirror, guys. You don't need an expensive mirror. And it's, look at that. Do you see how there's hardly any shine left? That's amazing, mate. That's some top quality makeup right there. I mean, I know this is such a masculine thing to say. I would totally buy male makeup. But like, if there's makeup out there that kind of complements like rugged figures, rugged facial features, I'd totally be down for buying that stuff. If anyone knows such stuff that exists, let me know. Second non-sponsorship, but if they want to sponsor me, do it. Thin Lizzy, the Flawless Complexion Concealer Cream. You don't need much, seriously. You need like, boop. That's it. That's literally all you need for almost half your face. Alright, now that I've touched myself up as skillfully as a straight male could, let's get back onto it.